Wardell Stephen Curry, the man who helped change the game of basketball into the modern product we know today, and at the time I'm making this video, he's just recently become the all-time leader in three-pointers made, which is a record that he certainly deserves considering how he's universally recognized as the greatest shooter of NBA history. Contrary to popular belief, since my 50 greatest players video, Steph is actually one of my favorite players in the league, as no one has amazed me with their shot making as much as Steph Curry has since the days where Kobe Bryant was in his prime. Many believe that Steph Curry is the greatest shooter of all time, that he's the second greatest point guard of all time, and that he's already among the top 15 players in NBA history. But even with all of that in consideration, I still believe that this season from Steph Curry may ultimately be the most defining season of his legacy. Most legends have that one season, where if things had gone differently, it would have drastically affected the way we view them in the bigger picture. For example, LeBron James in 2016. If he doesn't complete that 3-1 comeback to defeat the 73-9 Warriors, what is left on his resume? The 2 championships in 4 years with the super team Miami Heat, and the 2020 championship with the Lakers, which some people consider as the illegitimate Mickey Mouse ring. With LeBron's legacy as we know it today, he's definitely in the GOAT conversation, but without the ring in Cleveland, that's not even a conversation at all, which speaks to the impact of those 2016 finals. Another example would be Dirk's championship ring in 2011. Without it, he's a ringless superstar who's probably more well known for his failures in the playoffs leading up to 2011. The last example would be Kobe's 5th championship in 2010. Without that last ring, Kobe's remembered as another great Laker who just couldn't get through the Celtics, and even his ring in 2009 would have been diminished considering how Kevin Garnett's knee injury resulted in an easier path for Kobe's last championship. The point of these examples is not that these greats wouldn't be remembered as legends, because obviously they would be, but without these defining moments, these players would have kept many of the criticisms and negative narratives that they heard so often throughout the early years of their careers. LeBron would still be seen as a player who can't win a championship unless he clearly has the more stacked team. Dirk would likely be seen as a choker in the postseason and would be lumped into the crowded circle of stars who were never able to get over the hump. And Kobe would be seen as a Laker who couldn't get through the Celtics, and as the guy who could only get a ring without Shaq when his best competition was injured. So now that we've considered the conquered narratives of other legends, what are the current narratives about Steph Curry? Well, along with the positive things that we know about him, whether it's fair or not, many see him as an underperformer in the postseason and as a glorified second option since he was arguably only the second best player on the majority of his championship teams. In that first championship, where Steph was clearly the best player on the Warriors, he was pushed to 6 games by a LeBron-led Cavs team that didn't even have 2 of their star players available. So you could even argue that Steph hasn't won a legitimate championship ring as the best player on his team. Now, I personally don't agree with those narratives, but the reality is that they carry weight, and whether they're actually true or not, they will affect how the general audience remembers him after he's retired. For us longtime basketball fans, we've seen it time and time again. As things currently stand, Steph is 33 years old and will be turning 34 in several months. To everyone's surprise, his Warriors have the best record in the NBA, and Klay Thompson should be returning to the court any day now. Along with that, Steph is among the favorites to win the league MVP this season, which would be his 3rd, equaling him to legends like Magic Johnson and Larry Bird. So to make my point abundantly clear, there is huge opportunities for Steph this season to take his legacy to the next level. Opportunities that won't last very long considering his age and considering his long history of injuries. If Steph wants to destroy many of the negative narratives that have been surrounding his career, and if he wants to make an argument for cracking the top 10 list of the greatest players of all time, the time to strike is now. Think of all the historic achievements within Steph's reach this season alone. For one, he just became the all-time record holder in three-pointers made. He could get a 3rd scoring title, which would surpass Kobe Bryant and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, a 3rd MVP, which would match Magic and Bird, a 4th championship ring, which would match Shaquille O'Neal and LeBron James, And lastly, that elusive Finals MVP, which would finally put to rest the narrative about Steph underperforming in the postseason. These opportunities don't present themselves very often, and you could argue that this is one of the most wide-open Western Conferences of recent history, considering how the West is typically the more stacked conference by far. I would say no pressure, Steph, but that would be a lie. The truth is, there is a tremendous amount of pressure on this legend, as this will be a defining season that will either take his legacy to new unforeseen heights, or it will just reaffirm the vocal naysayers, inching himself closer to one of the more polarizing legacies of basketball history. So, what do you guys think? If Steph was able to attain all of the history within his reach this season, what would it do for his legacy, and would he have a realistic argument of moving into the top 10 list of the greatest players in NBA history? Let me know in the comments section below. Thanks for watching as always, make sure to like and subscribe for more basketball content, and I'll see you guys in the next video.